a monster.
I'm your number one fan.
Now clear your minds. Knows what scares you. It has from the very beginning.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
It's been informed that zombies have entered the building. They're at the door. They're coming in.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Midnight Monster Corner podcast. I'm your host as always, Corey, and alongside me is my good pal, Tony. What's going on, brother?
Not much, man. How you been, dude?
Dude, we're finally doing it again.
I'm telling you, we took a little hiatus there again for a while.
Yeah. Well, of course, I got sick again. Dude, we had it rough this time.
Yeah. I remember getting the updates from you, with the family and how everybody was doing. It did not sound good.
No. So basically, I haven't disclosed it to anyone, in the group or anything. So a lot of people are probably wondering where the hell the next episode is. Basically, my whole family had caught in COVID. I not only was battling COVID, I was also battling tonsillitis and strep throat at the same time. So I had a triple whammy happen to me. And as you can hear, my voice is starting to come in a little bit more clear. But there for about 2 weeks, we were dead to the world.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you guys are doing better, though. I'm glad everything is clearing up and you guys are on the up and up health wise, man. I was worried about you guys there for a while because it did not sound good on the peak front with you guys. I was very concerned. Like I said, man, when you had to go through all of that, like you in particular with the triple whammy of everything that was going on with you, that was rough, man. And then you were trying to soldier through it and like, yeah, man, we can get an episode out, we can record. I'm like, buddy, I don't feel comfortable doing that if you're not 100% ready.
Yeah. I was like on the verge of losing my throat. Yeah, we can record. Let's do it.
Yeah. I admire your spirit, but I'm glad we took a little break and that you were able to recover a little bit.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, what killed it for me is hell, I was out of work for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Oh, dude, yeah, absolutely. If I'm out of work for like a week, I start getting stir crazy. So for 2 weeks, I understand.
Oh yeah.
Completely get it.
I was trying to find stuff to do outside, so I was like chopping down trees and shit.
While you're sick.
Yeah.
Guy, I swear. You're a fucking monster.
I was getting winded too. I was like
Well,
knocking down one tree and then I was like, let me take a break.
obviously. One tree at a time.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Only you would be cutting down trees with COVID and strep throat and tonsillitis and shit.
Yeah. Gotta get it done.
Gotta get done.
Oh yeah. Well, so we left off doing a Mario Bava film, and we're coming back to doing one. I was quite excited about doing this one. Honestly, I went into this film pretty blind actually. I felt that I had watched it before. You even said that you felt that we had watched it together.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be honest with you. There was like scenes where I was like, okay, I've seen this scene before. But then there's like times where I was like, this is like a fresh movie to me. I've never seen this part before.
So to put some perspective into it for the listeners out there, me and Corey used to hang out and used to come by the house and we used to watch movies and stuff like that. And I think we mentioned it a time or two before, but this was at a time when you were working late and like you were barely getting any sleep and we would kind of power through movie after movie after movie. And we did this quite often. And I think this was an instance where we started the film and you might have started to pass out a little bit, so we never finished it, I believe.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it after we talked. I was like, I'm pretty sure this was an occasion where when we started watching it, We never finished because, might have been passing out a little bit there, which is completely understandable, dude. When you were
Yeah.
working all the hours you were doing, I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I would work literally I would work a 12-hour shift on third shift and then come over and hang out with you.
Yeah.
Like 6 o'clock in the morning I was getting off of work, coming over, and we would start watching movies up until like 6 or 7 that night, you know.
We
There
try
was
to.
times where I was up past 24 hours
Oh yeah.
watching films with you. So yeah, I think this was one of those instances where like halfway through it, I was passing out on you. I just always remember like looking over and you're like, "You're all right, buddy," and I've done missed like 20 minutes of the film.
But you know what, man? The amazing thing was, we were able to get through a lot of stuff even with that. I mean, I feel bad about it now. Like, dude, I feel bad like denying you or like depriving you from all that sleep that you. I mean, that should.
No, because
Thinking about
honestly,
it, when we were thinking
like
about it when we were a lot younger. We felt like we were a little bit more untouchable. We can stay up past 24 hours. No big deal. Like that's
yeah,
no big.
I can't do
No
that
problem.
shit now.
Yeah, nowadays it's like once we got to our 30s and stuff, it's like that just don't sound like a good idea.
Yeah,
We're even pretty when it comes to our schedule and stuff like that when we're recording the podcast, we know what time we have to be done recording so we can actually get some decent sleep before we go to work in the morning. So we've
yeah,
we've changed completely from those days, that's for sure.
yeah. Well, and don't ever feel bad about that because like if I wasn't sitting at your house watching movies with you, I was sitting at my house watching movies, or up playing video games. That first initial day that I got off on the weekends, I never went to sleep
Like no
ever.
man.
I
Yeah.
I, I would stay up like because working third shift, you really don't have a life. So like like for me, I was trying to enjoy every bit of the weekend I possibly could, and then I would just rest like crazy, up until having to go back to work Sunday night.
Yeah.
So because I was only getting like Saturday afternoon off, like, that was it.
Yeah. And we had around that time we had the same schedule too.
Hmm.
So kind of because I was working second shift at that time, so we were more night owls than anything, like based on our schedule. So it was easier for us to do that back then. But now we're both on first shift. It's like a whole different other ball game now. We have a couple more kids. It's like, nah, those days are long gone. I can't even stay up past like 10 anymore. Honestly, if we're not recording, it's tough for me, man. I start
Uh,
getting sleepy around that time.
you know what the crazy thing is like I spent so long on that shift and I was such a night owl, and to this day I'm still a night owl. Like I can go to bed at like 9, 10 o'clock, but I cannot fall asleep before midnight
Really
ever. Yeah.
interesting.
I'm usually up till about midnight, and then I have to force myself to go to bed at that point.
That's interesting because I
I
can't
still
do
Yeah. But
it.
I can't honestly function like after only getting like I gotta only get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep.
That's about a regular now for me. It's about 4 or 5 hours, and then I'm good to go. It's probably
'Cause
not healthy, but
it's
uh,
not. It's really not. But like last night, for instance, last night I went to bed. I think I fell asleep like around like 9 or 10 o'clock,
yeah,
fairly early for myself. And I was dragging ass the first um, a little bit of this morning. I literally had to force myself to get in the mood to work this morning because I was just not in it.
damn,
Yeah, it was pretty rough. Then I just didn't want to have to deal with what I was dealing with at work.
it's a combination of a couple things, right?
Yeah, because we're having to fabricate a trailer right now on something that's not even supposed to be meant for the trailer. So, pain in the butt. Got to do it.
Pain in the
But with that being said, Mario Bava, what film are we covering today?
We're still on Bava, and for this particular episode, we are covering 1966's Kill Baby Kill. Just
Oh, yeah. I got to get that one.
which is funny because I know when we covered Black Sunday, I couldn't find my Blu-ray, so I couldn't show it off. I think I did. I think I showed off the DVD, and you watched the Blu-ray quality, or you watched your Blu-ray for that one. So with this one, we flipped it. You watched the DVD, and I watched the Blu-ray. So
Yeah.
we kind of swapped there for our review for our
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah,
Which
I
is
watched the shitty VCI version.
because that I was gonna say because that VCI is kind of that
It's
edition.
rough.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, honestly, like it's. I wouldn't say it's fully rough. It is a rough cut.
yeah, oh yeah.
Um,
Older DVD, of course, it's gonna show its
Yeah.
age.
but it's I don't know. For what it is, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great film. I had to look past certain things like the shitty graininess of the film and stuff like that. Once
Yeah.
I saw past it, it wasn't a bad film. Very atmospheric.
Oh, that's the thing, man. I hate that you watched it like that because honestly, this movie is like a visual masterpiece, man. It's amazing how Bava is able to frame these shots and get the lighting right. And well, I mean, it's not considering the man's body of work. It's like second nature to him. He can do this in his sleep. It's incredible the way he's able to be as almost his own cinematographer. And this movie is another example of just his visual flair and his style and the Italian style in general that he helped to create with films like this. Because like I said, this came before Argento was able to shoot his first feature and before Fulci was able to shoot his first. And I mean, no, I don't think Fulci at the time, I think he was directing, but he wasn't directing horror. So um, stuff like this is like hugely influential. And we've kind of discussed this a little bit when we were talking about Black Sunday, but Bava himself being so influential for the Italian horror scene at the time. I mean, him being pretty much the godfather of Italian horror. So this movie to me is one of those peak examples of visual flair in Italian cinema and how it was able to kind of like appeal to the mainstream like Black Sunday was, because Black Sunday was very successful overseas. I don't think it's so much successful in Italy. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I know overseas in different countries it was very successful. So that and Black Sabbath, if I'm not mistaken, I think that one did very well as well.
It's another
But
one I've never seen.
which is another one we definitely would need to cover soon because I actually did pop it in and watch it recently. Right after we covered Black Sunday, I popped it in and watched it, and I had such a good time with it. Another example of his. I mean, this is like the Black Sunday, Black Sabbath, and Kill Baby Kill are almost like their own trilogy in like stylistic flair and color and lighting, and there's just even with Black Sunday being black and white, it's just incredible. Definitely like in the atmosphere department, some of the best atmosphere ever put in a film. With these three films, it's second to none. It's remarkable.
Yeah, I could see where you're coming from with that, because I love the atmosphere in this film. It's something about the fog. He makes the smoke just look really good.
It's menacing almost. It's almost like its own character.
Yeah.
His location shots. I love that this film was shot. I believe it was shot in Italy, so he was able to take advantage of different architecture that we as Americans and the Western audience we're not really used to seeing architecture and structures like that. So to us it seems almost even more eerie because you're just not seeing those or buildings like that. And the
that's what I love about this film. the architecture is one of the main things I love about this film, because you get that sense of almost like a small village. You know, that's what this film feels like. Because even like the end, it just looks like something that you would just picture in a small village. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it's got like a saloon down in it. You know, and it's an inn, so people like can stay upstairs. You know, um, I love all the shots in the village though.
Yeah.
Because even like the back alleys and stuff, there's really no streets. It's just like back alleys and stairs everywhere.
Well, that's the cool thing. I just thought about that. And I didn't write it in my notes, but I just thought about this. It reminds me a lot of like the early German expressionism, especially that scene. The scene when he's walking through the alleys and stuff like that reminds me a lot of like that early German expressionism, which I'm sure probably Bava pulled from a little bit. He's probably a little, paying homage to films around that time because they were hugely influential
Hmm.
in cinema history. But I didn't write that down. I just put two and two together with that, and it's like, man, that really reminds me a lot of that early German stuff,
Hmm.
like Caligari and stuff like that. Like,
I was that's exactly what I was thinking.
was,
The what is it, the Cabinet of Caligari or whatever?
mhm,
Yeah, I was exactly thinking that. Yeah, I agree with that statement right there.
definitely. I wish I would have had that in my notes, but I just thought about that just on the
Hmm.
fly. Um, it's really interesting that I genuinely like from the first frame of the first shot of this film, you're just immediately hooked into it because of with the way like you first off you see a very graphic kill, which you didn't see that very often. Not so matter of fact in that regard. Um, it's kind of brutal the way
Hmm.
this young lady ends up dying. It's like wow, like this is 1966. You don't see something like that happen to somebody around
Hmm.
this time. It's kind of like wow, it just kind of takes you back. And when it starts out, you just get immediately drawn and hooked into the film. And that theme, that score is haunting.
Hmm.
It's wonderful. It's so unique, and I love how they incorporated the laughter into the score. Um, very very ominous and creepy, which
Hmm.
suits it because this film, like we said, is just heavy on atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah, and it fits the whole storyline. You know, all the way down to um which we'll get into more about the child
Yeah,
aspect of the whole thing. I love it. I love how all that fits in. Even the score fits all the way down to the storyline. It's just awesome.
100%.
Good
But
filmmaking.
yeah, it is, man. If you want to, we can get into the plot a little bit if you want to go that direction and kind of give the listeners a basic outline because I don't think a lot of cats that are tuning in have seen this film, which is unfortunate. I mean,
No.
it's so good, so good.
And I tell you, for those of you that haven't seen this film, I really don't know where you can see it. I wasn't able to check Hulu. Maybe it might be on Hulu, but I tried Tubi, and of course Netflix, and maybe it might be on YouTube, and maybe
Why
Prime Video as well.
I checked if any any listeners out there have Sling TV. I think if you have a subscription to Sling TV, you can see it. I know it's a premium subscription on YouTube as well. I did see a couple sources where you can see it. I know the Kino Blu-ray. I think it's reasonably priced. I don't think it's too expensive. Uh,
Usually the Mario Bava line, anything's really about $17.
yeah, it's
But
not
I
too.
mean, not for a Kino Mario Bava film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which Kino actually has put out a lot of his filmography on Blu-ray, and
Hmm.
I'm sure soon they're going to upgrade or scale up to 4K, which movies like this would be absolutely stunning in 4K. They're stunning in Blu-ray quality, so I can't
Yeah.
imagine how they look in 4K. So Yeah, there's a couple of subscription services you can use to see this film if you have already signed up for them. That I looked up just right away. I wanted to look up to see where listeners can definitely check this out because this movie has to be seen, especially around this time of year. You know, we're getting the fall and Halloween and the spooky season. People love watching horror. Even more mainstream audiences. I mean, we'll watch it all year round, but for the more mainstream audiences, if they want to see, some different stuff this year for Halloween and the spooky season, this is the perfect film to watch.
Oh yeah. And plus, this is a really good Mario Bava film.
It is, man. To me, this is a kind of an underrated Bava film. You don't hear too many people talk about it when it comes to his filmography. I know you hear a lot of like Blood and Black Lace, Black Sunday, even Black Sabbath, Twitches, aka
Yeah.
Blood.
Of course, more of his Giallo stuff. I think it's a little more praised than stuff like this. This was kind of. Would you say this is before his Giallo phase?
I mean, Blood and Black Lace came out before this, but and then Girl Who Knew Too Much also came out before this. So he had touched on Giallo. Of course, this is like the precursor to Giallo, so they haven't really fully been established at this point.
Yeah.
Because he is technically the godfather of the Giallo film. So he was starting out laying the foundation for what would later become traditional Giallo. But this was more his take on like a gothic horror film and a traditional gothic horror film. One you would see from Universal, from back in the day, stuff like that. I mean, really effectively, relying on atmosphere and mood and that's what kind of drove the force of the film was the effective atmosphere and the mood and the I love there's this heavy theme of science and religion and superstition, like a clash between the two. Because essentially what you have is it seems like an apparent suicide early in the film, and we're gonna spoil from here on. We're probably gonna get into some spoilers. So if you haven't seen the film, I do recommend you check it out before continuing on listening to the discussion that we're gonna have. So be forewarned, listeners out there. We're gonna get heavy into spoilers here soon. Right about now. But so essentially, because we're talking about the plot. The plot's kind of like pretty simplified, but there's also themes going on here, which we have to touch on, and we're probably going to spoil. So essentially, what we have is what appears to be a suicide of a young lady in this village. So I think it's the Burgermeister that I feel, yeah. Maybe it's the inspector. No, I think it's the inspector that calls upon a doctor to come to this town
to perform an autopsy.
But when he gets into this town, he realizes that something's not quite right about the town. The people here are very superstitious. They don't want the doctor to perform the autopsy on the body.
Yeah, because the town knows what's happening.
Right. They know what's happening, but they can't fully explain to anybody or the outsider. They can't explain to the outsiders, the people that are not from this town, what's happening because they won't understand them, won't believe them, because they're going to feel like they're just being very superstitious and very, very old fashioned and not, of the times. Because I mean, it's like I said, the theme of superstition and religion versus like science and medicine is like very, very prevalent in this film. One of the main themes of the film. So he has a hard time getting access to the body to perform an autopsy because they're so against it. Even to the point where when he's walking down, the scene we had previously mentioned when he's walking down these alleys and stuff like that. They try to jump him and pretty much kill him because they don't want him to interfere with what's going on in the town. Uh, but he gets past all that. He's able to move past it and able to perform the autopsy, which is he just has an ominous feel that something's not right and that something's quite off, and no one's coming forth and letting him know. And he feels like really an outsider and alone until while performing the autopsy, he needs another surrogate person to be there for him. So they, I think what her title is, I can't remember what her title is, but she is a local girl who was born in the town, but she had went away, I think, for school, and then came back. So they asked her to actually be the aide for the autopsy, his aide, because there has to be somebody else there while he's performing the autopsy.
Yeah, that was Monica.
Monica, yes, Monica
Schuchten.
Schuchten, which is just so much fun to say. I love saying it. I love the names, like all the names of everybody in this town. It's just so fun to say.
Yeah. So her backstory was that she was actually, I guess, pretty much an orphan from this town. And she was sent away, I guess, after her estranged parents had passed away, and left her all this money to go to school and stuff with. But she was coming back to this town because she, I guess, wanted to find out her roots.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a plot twist. We're not going to get into that right away.
Right away, yeah.
But yeah. So that's how those two characters meet. So she's an outsider herself, even though she's originally from this village.
Right.
So that's the cool aspect of it. She doesn't know anything of her past. The only thing she knows is that her parents had sent her away to school. What did she go to school for? Do you remember? Was it art?
Not quite sure. I think it had something to do with the medical field because she is his aide. So I'm pretty sure it had something to do with the medical field.
Yeah.
Not 100% though on that. But yeah. So she comes in. They're performing the autopsy. They can't quite understand why this is happening to. Because this is also continuing to happen to a lot of people in the village where they're meeting untimely deaths, and it's kind of just completely
it's all suicide too.
right. It's completely confounding to them. They really want to get to the bottom of it, which is a typical trope in Italian films of an outsider coming in, there being some sort of crazed situation going on that they want to basically figure out and investigate themselves. Like I said, very, very, very Giallo-esque in that regard because that happens a lot in Gialli. So that's another common thing that occurs. But so basically, yeah, they are taking it upon themselves to figure out what's going on and get to the bottom of the strangeness of this whole town. Which I mean, it's plucked out of like just a town from like just everything seems haunted and ghastly and fog, just laced in fog and just there's something about when he arrives in the town and just the shots of the town and all the architecture and everything like that is just so masterfully done and just so gripping. It really just really takes you and just draws you in. Like I said, from the first shot alone, you're just immediately hooked. At least I was. I don't know. I can't speak for everybody, but I know me personally, I was completely hooked. First time I saw this movie, I was completely hooked. And even now, still watching it many, many times over, I'm still completely just fascinated by everything that's going on here.
Well, and you and I, we talked about this, and one of the things that I said to you was, I really wished that this film was done in black and white. Because me personally, I think it would have just added that much more effect. Don't get me wrong. I mean, this was the time where they were playing around with color and stuff like that. But I mean, I think it would have been uh, a lot better had it just been black and white.
It's funny you say that, buddy, because I wrote that down in my notes. In the beginning, the first act, I wrote that down. I said, really, it would be interesting to see a black and white version of this film. And then by the third act, I had completely changed my mind because I noticed in the third act that Bava's use of greens and blues are so amazing. They're
Yeah.
so incredible. And everything that happens in the estate that the doctor's in, is the Graf's estate. All that stuff that happens in there is amazing in color. It looks absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
The cinematography, I'm telling you, is absolutely masterful. And there's so much that third act alone. When we get to it, there's going to be a lot of discussion on that. But I wrote the exact same thing down in the first half of this movie. I said this would be really interesting to see a black and white version of this film. And then after I got through that third act, I completely flipped the script and changed my mind because I noticed his use of colors and lighting was so phenomenal that I was like, I couldn't take that away from this film. Making it completely black and white, it would really suck.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Um, any Italian film with vibrant color and just really wonderful shots of lighting, I love it. I mean, that's one of the things that makes Italian films so great. But I just with the architecture, like going from watching Black Sunday and then watching this movie,
Yeah.
the graveyard shots with the fog rolling in, stuff like that. I was really just like I would love for that to be black and white. Like I really I would have loved just to see this whole movie in black and white just to see what it looked like.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Like I
but
said,
I
I
mean,
was right there.
I could see where certain shots are really good with the bright reds and greens and yellows, but when it comes down to it, like the shots in the village and stuff like that, and knowing that those shots are like an actual village, like that's an actual location.
On location, yeah.
Those shots would have been just that much better in black and white, I think.
Well, I noticed that a lot of shots inside of like the estate or shots that took place in the alleyways and stuff like that really hone in on the colors and the usage of colors and the contrast of colors, especially in the last act. The plays on blues and greens is just phenomenal. It's so good. It seems like every frame there's color, and it's like wow, like that was a conscious decision on his part to really hone in on that and really make that prevalent. And you don't notice it. I mean, if you're watching this movie for the first time and maybe you're stuck on the narrative and you're paying so close attention to the narrative that you might not even notice that visual flair. And it takes multiple watches to really, unless you know about it ahead of time, it takes multiple watches to really keen in on stuff like that. Unless you just naturally have an eye for that kind of thing. If you're just watching the film just basically as a narrative piece, then you're probably going to miss out on that kind of thing, which is unfortunate because I mean, if you're the type of person that just watches a movie once and you don't revisit, go back to it, you're going to miss out on a lot doing that.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not discrediting any of that. Like, I just I don't know. I guess I wish there was like two versions we could choose from.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of like what they did with the Mist when they did like a black and white version of the Mist.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing. Yeah.
I would almost wish that like Kino had put that on the Blu-ray. That would have been awesome.
Right.
Like you could watch it in black and white or in color.
It would be interesting. It would be. I'm right there with you, man. It would be really cool to see that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I don't think it'll work for all shots. I think just the majority of like the film where he's like in the village running around, or in the cemetery, or even when he's doing the autopsy, like all that in black and white would just be awesome.
Especially the stuff with the cemetery, like 100%.
Hands down.
The moodiness and the unease and the tension and all the spooky stuff. It just heightens everything.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, even like going down the line to like the extras in this film, they really, really sell their small roles well, because there's such an unease and there's such a fear in their eyes when they're even mentioning, past sins that have happened in this town, and they don't want to talk about anything that's really hard. There's a lot of frustrating moments where you want more information out of the townspeople, but they just can't give it because they're so afraid of the retaliation and what's going to happen to them if they even talk about the situation and what's really plaguing this town.
They feel that they're going to be marked
for death. Yeah,
even if they talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Which is pivotal in the scene with the innkeeper's daughter. She's the perfect example of that scenario happening, where she wants to explain to the doctor what's happening, but she's so afraid that it comes out and like broken information, and she really doesn't fully say what's happening, but just her mentioning the situation really marks her for death. And
yeah, because so he goes and gets a letter stating that his friend, who's the inspector, is going to go see the Baroness Graps. Is that her name?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he was saying something to the innkeeper's daughter, and he was like, "I've got to go meet my friend at the Baroness Scraps or whatever," and she was like, "Oh, he's not going to return. No one ever returns from there."
Yeah.
And that was it. And the next thing you know, she saw the little girl.
Yeah.
Apparently, once you see the little girl, you're marked.
You're marked for death. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, dude. It's fascinating. And her parents, the innkeepers, they're so like desperate for help that they turn to this local witch that lives there in the village named Ruth, who kind of like the townsfolk kind of shame her, and she kind of like, she doesn't really like, she's used for like a desperation move almost, where the town doesn't really want to acknowledge her, or it seems like that way anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I guess because of her dabbling in the black arts and stuff like that, and kind of this town's very superstitious, and of
she's
course
a witch.
Yeah, of course, goes hand in hand. So but there's a point where they're just so desperate to save their daughter that they turn to her to kind of perform a ritual to kind of save her and keep her from falling under the influence of this curse, which at first is working until the doctor, who sees that what's happening to her is probably going to kill her before anything else. And he's confused by the whole situation, because he's like, well, you guys are putting her in a position where she could die from infection or exposure, because they have like something wrapped around her that's almost like
they have barbed wire wrapped around her.
Yeah, sharp. Was it barbed wire? It might have been, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they were gonna,
they had her restrained to her bed with barbed wire.
Right.
And he comes in and he's like, "What the fuck y'all doing?" Like,
it's like, yeah, this is.
Y'all are gonna fucking kill her.
You guys are gonna be the ones that kill her, for your fear and your simple ways.
And it didn't take much convincing. I found it very fascinating that it didn't take much convincing, because he was like, "I've got some medicine. Just let me go up to my room and get it, and I'll bring it back down here for her." And they're like, no modern medicine. And then he's like, "Look, I'm going to go to my room. We're going to get this infection under control, get her fever down." And they were like, "Okay." I was like, wow, that was really hard for suspicious people.
A very effective talker. Yeah.
You could tell the mother was definitely not on board with any of it, and the father was just like no matter what, he wanted to save his daughter somehow, some way. So you could tell.
So desperate at that point, yeah.
Yeah. Because
Because
I
I mean,
mean,
what
as
happened,
soon as she was like, "I seen her," that's it.
which that image alone with the little girl in the window is the main image from the movie that you see. So haunting and so creepy. It's so good. I love that shot. Um, just the way it's framed, just everything about it. It's just like
Yeah.
Bob at his peak, man. I'm just telling you, he could do no wrong at this time. Like he was knocking everything out of the park.
And to know that bit of trivia, it just blows my mind.
Right. That this
So yeah, they basically everyone, even Bava, worked for free on this movie
yeah.
because they within 2 weeks. So the trivia on IMDb is basically states that uh, an estimated 2 weeks into production, they ran out of the budget, they ran out of money, and they proceeded to move forward with the project, uh, all knowing that they weren't getting paid.
We're gonna get paid, yeah. But they believed so much in the project, I'm sure, and they believed in Bava that they were like, yeah, let's do this, let's finish this. This is
That's awesome.
we want this done. You know, amazing. It just goes to show how much they believe in him,
Hmm.
how influential he was, and how people just saw his vision and were like, yeah, I'm on board. Let's do this. Let's finish this up. Let's make this happen. Budget be damned. We're not gonna abandon this project.
Which I'm curious to find out like how long it actually took to make this movie.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
How long the production shoot or the shoot was.
Yeah.
Or how much the original budget was. Like what was it?
I don't know. Had to be a decent amount of money.
Well,
You
yeah,
know?
because Black Sunday had done well, and of course um the studio heads at that time, I'm sure, were like, yeah, give Bava a decent budget. He's already made money on Black Sunday, and I think Black Sabbath as well made money. And I'm not quite sure how Blood and Black Lace did internationally. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's considered a classic, so that goes
Mhm.
to show. I mean, that's not always the case. I mean, you'll have classics today that bombed when they were released. So um,
Look at Halloween 3.
right, I know today it's held in very high regard. So um, who knows, might have been a little ahead of its time as far as the giallo elements were concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what did you think about that shot where she finally offs herself?
Oh
I
yeah,
should
when
say. Well, let's go back to that autopsy. Let's talk about that because we didn't actually get into that. So, when they do the autopsy, they find coins in the heart,
hmm
and that's very puzzling. And again, the doctors turn to superstition.
yeah. Well, that's when
You
he
know?
that's when he kind of realized something's not quite right. Something's going on here.
Yeah.
This is not
'Cause-
normal.
Yeah, because even still at this point, he's like, what's going on here? Why, if this girl has committed suicide, then why does she have coins in her heart?
Which to me is really cool because many, 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 many years later, this would be kind of like homage, like this would be done in like the autopsy of Jane Doe, a movie like that, which
Hmm.
is which is a very, very solid movie. It's so good. And then you see something like that in that, and it's like, wow, I wonder if the director kind of took inspiration from this.
Hmm.
You don't see that kind of thing very often,
Yeah.
especially when someone performing an autopsy and finding something like that in the body
Hmm.
was pretty cool. But yeah, that's the initial kind of thing that kicks in gear with him going, okay, something's not quite right. Something's going on here.
Yeah.
It's a very superstitious town. I don't know if my medical background is gonna serve me well here, but I have to as an obligation and as a man of medicine, I have to perform this autopsy and I have to get to the bottom of what happened to this young lady. So
Yeah.
he's steadfast and determined to see it through, and carries him into the third act of him being stubborn and wanting to solve what the hell's going on. And I kind of like I said, I'm normally the type of person that, I don't like to pry into things that don't concern me or anything like that. But I could see his angle in this, trying to figure out what happened because of these victims being so young and in the prime of their life, and then them just being completely just taken from weird and unfortunate circumstances. It is very puzzling, and you are very curious to know, especially when you think you can help the cause or help, bring an end to what's going on. Kind of motivates you more, and I'm sure it motivated him as far as that is concerned, and the fact that he's a man of medicine and he wants to see it through.
He wants to kind of disprove the whole town.
The town.
It really feels that way, because all these people are supernatural to the point where they're willing to rush to bury a body so that he doesn't do an autopsy against the will of the inspector and anyone in the town.
Right.
Because this town's very supernatural and everything, and they don't even believe in modern medicine at this point. They strictly believe in what they see, and what they see is, superstitious. I mean, I really love the shot where you get a strong feel as an audience member when he's arriving in town, and like all the people are like shutting their doors and stuff and windows. They're not like wanting to make contact with him at all. Even down to the innkeepers, they were very I would say recluse to him almost a little bit. They didn't want to deal too much with him, and they felt that I feel that they felt that they were taking a risk taking him in and everything, given the fact that he's there to do an autopsy on a body against the whole village's will.
Yeah.
So I love that, and I love that he's like a man of medicine and just trying to disprove the whole town's beliefs on everything. That's what I take from this film.
Right.
And he has to go through it in order to fully understand it and believe it. And he does in the end.
All right. Well, Bava
We'll
really
get into
that theme. He really hammers it home in this film, and it's very prevalent. It's an ongoing thing with the entirety of the movie is that theme, because he's the stalwart in the medicine and science behind things, and everyone in the town is completely against it. They're very superstitious and very stuck in their ways, old traditional ways, so they don't want to accept this new process and this new way of life, so to speak. So it's a constant combatant throughout the film.
Yeah. And
but
he comes in contact with her at one point.
Oh yeah.
I found that very fascinating.
Yeah. What in the estate, when he goes to the estate to see? Yeah. Everything about that whole sequence is just masterful, man. From everything that goes on there. First of all, the estate itself is so haunting. Like, that building looks straight out of something that is haunted in real life. Like, you would just assume that there's been death in that house, and that there's ghosts just and spirits just all over that place, man. Just on the way it looks and the way it's presented.
Yeah. I dig the hell out of it. All the way down to the cobwebs. The cobwebs are even a neat touch.
Yeah. I wrote that down on my notes. So many cobwebs. So it's insane. I gotta give it up to the set design and everybody involved in that that aspect as well. All the crew, like the sets look so genuine, like they look period correct. Everything looks so
I'm
fantastic.
almost wondering if they found like an old villa
It almost
and
seems that way, right?
and set it up, or was it? Yeah, I'm kind of curious to figure that out, whether or not it was a set or what, was that in a studio, or was that, actually like somebody's villa, that's been abandoned for years.
Well, it looked great. I know this film takes place in the late 1800s, so just everything looks so correct, period correct. I had to write that down on my notes. Like, man, it's just I love how they're able to show this time period in film, and especially around that time, looking so authentic, so genuine. It just really takes me back, and it just makes me like, oh man, just appreciate it so much more. And I'm really happy that he was able to shoot this in Italy too, and it adds more to it to me than anything. And you kind of went along with that too, Corey, and kind of like, yeah, absolutely, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just everything in that villa is just, man, just that third act alone is just when it kicks into high gear. There's so many amazing shots in that. Of course, you get you finally get to see the ghostly child. Well, you see her before, but you see a good shot of her when she meets the doctor and kind of like just disappears. It's really cool how he shoots that, he frames everything so where it seems like she is just genuinely disappearing from one frame to the next.
Mhm.
I love that, and of course you get this happened. Now I don't know how many times this happened prior to this movie, but I know after this seemed to be a common thing in like supernatural and haunting films. The ball, like a child's toy,
Mhm.
ball bouncing around and stuff like that. Usually on steps and staircase. I know famously The Changeling did it, which we covered. We covered that movie. Um, that I mean, I've never seen. Like I said, I haven't seen every horror film ever made, but I know at this time, I'm sure it wasn't done that much. I'm sure that was hugely influential. Seeing that in particular.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. I really love the almost the cat and mouse with the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, come follow me, come chase me.
Well, it's a little girl spirit that genuinely is still a little girl and wants to play, and is not completely. Of course, she's hell bent on
Revenge.
a revenge. Yeah, essentially. I mean, and she's so just motivated by anger and
Mhm.
frustration and just genuine hatred for the town for what they allowed to happen. That at the end of the day, she's still like the child. She's still like, I think she was 8 years old.
Yeah,
Maybe
either 7 or 8.
yeah, something maybe a little bit older. But she was still a child. So at the end of the day, she still has that desire to want to play and be a child still.
Mhm.
Which is really, really fascinating that they're able to play along with that as well. But oh man, everything with the spiral staircase, oh, was fucking fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic.
I love the fact that before we get into the
I'm
third
sorry,
act and everything. No, you're fine.
get so excited
Um
for the third act.
there's a scene where he goes to meet the Baroness Graps
Mm,
for the first time, right? And he gets to this estate, this old villa, and he's walking through it, and it just more and more it looks fucking abandoned. Like it looks like nothing's been living there for years, right?
decades almost, yeah.
Yeah, and he finally gets to this like corridor, and then out of nowhere there's like this old lady,
Mm,
and she even comes out of a room that looks abandoned, like,
yeah,
and he's like, oh, and that's when they meet and start talking. And that's where he runs into Melissa. And Melissa's the little girl that we find out is the basically the killer of the film.
Yeah.
So
Supernatural.
I found that fascinating. But yeah, like to what you were saying, that every shot in that spiral staircase was just amazing.
Amazingly.
It's one of the shots that I would have loved to seen in black and white, especially the scene where was it Monica at one point she's trapped going down that staircase,
Yeah.
and it seems like she's going forever.
It's like an endless loop. Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Speaking
it.
speaking of endless loops, that repeater scene.
Oh my god, that had me on edge. I love that scene.
Oh my god, that scene kills me. It just my anxiety just goes through the roof when I see that, and it's just it's so wonderfully done. That had to have been really difficult to do back then, is to shoot a scene like that.
Yeah.
It's remarkable, honestly. You know what's funny? I was thinking of when I was watching that, and this is completely out of context, but I was thinking of that old Under Oath music video where the dude is repeating over and over and over, and he's following himself. And I was like, man, that's crazy, because it just out of context, I was thinking like, that's insane. That's exactly the same thing that happened in that video, but.
Yeah.
I'm not connecting any dots there. I'm just saying that was the hell of a coincidence.
Yeah, I went to it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was thinking of like the Megadeth music video, Sweating Bullets, where it's like going through the different corridors over and over again.
Oh yeah.
And it's like showing the band members doing something different in their cells.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, that's cool.
That is.
But it's yeah, to your point, that must have been a really hard shot to do. A lot of editing.
Mm-hmm.
But man, that's well executed.
It's
even to the point where he's like running through, and at one point he catches up with himself, and he's literally behind himself going through the door, only to come back through the other door to chase himself through the other door. And then he grabs himself by the shoulder.
Yeah, and then he turns around and he gives him that like otherworldly smile.
Yeah.
It's just eerie as hell, man. It's so effectively cool, and it just gives me chills thinking about it. I love that stuff. I really like. It's amazing to me that Melissa Graff's it didn't become like a horror icon, because she really is like the creepiest ghost child. I mean, the girl from The Ring is famous. The Grady twins are famous. Why isn't Melissa Graff's famous? She needs to be up there.
Yeah.
As one of the creepiest ghost children of all time. I mean, her just look is with the very, very blonde hair. It's just very eerie.
Mm-hmm.
About it, she's almost in like complete white, and just the look, the eyes. Even though what we found out doing a little bit of research is that actor is actually a boy playing a little girl, which is even more odd and even more eerie. So it really is creepy.
They like
man.
doing some weird shit in Italy.
They really.
It's like Michael, played by a 40-year-old man.
Yeah, Peter Bark and Burial Ground. Oh yeah, it's. I mean, they have to get around the. I don't know what that's about. I understand why they did that with Peter Bark, or like, yeah, why they did that, because of the child labor laws then, and how they couldn't shoot long hours with kid actors or child actors. So, but that is just bizarre how they went about casting a little boy as a ghostly girl. It's eerie, but it's effective as fuck. It really is. I think she needs to be like a icon in horror. I personally think she's very iconic.
I could see that.
The look, everything like that. I mean, people go ape shit over the Ring Girl and shit like that. So why can't Melissa become like a horror icon? I don't get it.
Because it's not a mainstream film.
It should be more widely known. It really should be. This should appeal to a lot more audiences and be bigger.
I think with it having a Blu-ray release, it will eventually make its way out more so.
I
You
hope
know?
so. I think
Yeah.
this is so criminally underrated, even just in Bava's filmography. Just in
Mhm.
general, horror in general, this movie's vastly underrated.
Yeah.
Overlooked as hell, and it's sad. So sad.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not one of the ones that, people automatically jump all over it. Oh, it's a classic from Mario Bava. They instantly go to like Blood and Black Lace, stuff like that, because that's what put the Giallo on the map.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah. I guess we can get to the storyline there in the third act. I guess the big reveal, the plot twist and everything.
Yeah. Which is really
Monica and the inspector go to see Carl, who we find out, well, we don't find out right away, but basically um, Carl, or was it Burgermeister? I guess
Mhm.
that's his title.
Yeah.
But basically he was like, I've got a letter for you, your parents left for you, in case you ever came back, in search of your history. And he goes and gets the letter. What I love about that shot, when, she's going to finally figure out where her history is, this big mystery on what her life has been, and
right.
everything. And as soon as he opens up that fucking armoire, she's right there holding the fucking letter. Man, that's eerie as shit,
Yeah.
And then of course, I love it how the evidence just gets burned.
Mhm.
I love it.
How his death happens, and how it's very reminiscent to a death in Bay of Blood, which is pretty cool.
It's another one I haven't seen.
Yeah, which is another one we got to check out, because
I have it.
that movie is influential as hell in the slasher genre. Friday 13th took a lot from Bay of Blood. Many films in that series did, and it's really fascinating. It really is. The Bay of Blood to me feels more like to me and a lot of other people. I kind of agree. A lot of people are on the same page with that as being very influential in the slasher genre.
Yeah, I was about to say I've heard where people have said that it's like the kind of the opener for American slasher.
Yeah,
So,
how it's very influential, and how it people deem it to be a very early slasher film,
yeah.
which I can completely understand. I can completely get behind that. But yeah, that's like I said, that kill on the Burgermeister is very, 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 very similar to a kill in Bay of Blood. So that's pretty cool. He was able to kind of replicate a kill in one of his films, which is interesting. But yeah, so we find out essentially the big reveal and the twist is that Monica is actually Melissa's sister and was sent away.
Twin, right?
Yeah, and was essentially sent away because she was afraid the she was a well no the mistress, no, not the mistress,
Fairness.
Baroness, yeah, Baroness was afraid for her safety because of her sister's like vengeance, that she would be harmed or she would be killed, so she sent her away to kind of like escape that torment.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she comes back because something's like drawing her back into the town, which we find out, of course, is because her bloodline is there, and her bloodline is affected so much in the town because she's linked to her sister in a sense. Um, and she's very, very taken back and shocked by, of course, this revelation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very sad when the Baroness is like showing her everything that Melissa used to do in her room, how her room was kept, the same, and it's very, very tranquil and very, very sad when that scene unravels, and transpires, but you can tell it's just a grieving parent, not able to let go of the memory of their child, and it's oh man, it's powerful stuff. Very, very sad. And the actress that plays Baroness is selling it very well. She's so very, very almost like I said, tranquil and very, very sad in the portrayal and how she's able to purvey the scene. And I had to write that down in my notes. Like, wow, it's very, very sad, very powerful stuff. And that, but she essentially is a driving force in Melissa's rage and vengeance too. She's not as innocent as she seems either.
Yeah. Well, she's at first she was able to control her daughter even after death, because the storyline has it that Baroness is actually psychic.
Yeah, like a medium. Yep.
But she's fueled through Ruth. Essentially, Ruth helps her channel her daughter in and everything. And I think she was willing to allow her daughter to seek revenge on the townfolk, because she even blames the townfolk because her daughter was dying while everyone was partying and getting drunk. And see, that was another thing, that the town stopped drinking and stuff because of this whole situation.
Well, she was trampled, right, by a carriage, and that's how she ended up passing away.
There was like a parade or something that occurred, and she was trampled, not to death.
All.
She died slowly, and she was ringing the bell, which I love that. I love the fact that they brought that up.
Yep.
So she was ringing the bell for help, and no one came because everyone was drinking and partying and having a good time. And basically, she fell to her demise. But what I love is the fact that if you hear the bell ringing, you know that you're marked as well.
Marked for death. Yeah.
Because no one else can hear the bell.
Yeah.
But you.
I love that addition to the movie. That was really, really a nice little touch.
Yeah.
Really.
And of course, in my mind, I'm just like, for whom the bell tolls.
Yeah. Hell yeah, dude. Absolutely.
But yeah, I love it. The reveal for Monica and Melissa, that's a really awesome reveal. I dug it.
Well, the cool thing about this story is, like, our main character, our main lead, Dr. Ishway, he essentially can't do anything. He's not the hero at the end of this movie. He can't do really anything. The only one that can stop this evil is Ruth. I mean, she's effectively the only person that can stop this from happening, and she does. I mean, she sacrifices herself at the end of the day, essentially. But she's the only one. I really firmly believe she's the only one that could have stopped this. Yeah. Like, Doctor and Monica couldn't have done anything.
Well, Ruth wasn't. You find out that Ruth really wasn't there to protect anybody. The only one that she was protecting, essentially, was Carl, her lover.
Mm-hmm.
So once he died, because she even says he was not to be harmed. That's what he told the Baroness. That's what she told the Baroness. And the Baroness is like, I can't control her anymore. She's just way too powerful. And then she basically was like, well, I don't have anything to live for now, because now my lover's gone. So,
interestingly enough, you think she just said that as an excuse because she wanted Carl essentially dead, because he was going to reveal to Monica what her past was and what, where she came from. Like, the revelation was there for him, and he was going to tell her by showing her the letter, and by killing him, she was able to spare that and from happening. So do you think that was just an excuse of her saying, "Oh, I can't control her anymore. She's doing this on her own," or do you think she really pushed that to happen?
Honestly, I don't think the Baroness really cared whether or not Monica knew about her past at that point, because Monica was back in town, so there was no I guess, saving her in case this happened, which she was already marked by Melissa at this point. But I think Melissa was doing it kind of maybe because her mother was actually still showing her love even beyond the grave, you know, because she was like going to her room and, she was playing with her or whatever. Or she would just come visit her in her room and stuff. But the thing is I think that she maybe didn't want to share her mom at that point,
Could be. Could
and
be.
so she didn't want that reveal.
Jealousy, yeah.
Yeah. So even beyond the grave, she didn't want to share her mom with her sister.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot that could really unfold right there.
I mean, yeah,
Or
100%.
really a lot that you could interpret as
You
an
can pull.
audience member.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what I took away from it.
Yeah. Well, I kind of took away. Kind of took away where she didn't want Carl to reveal that to her. That's why That's why he ended up meeting his demise. And
Mhm.
once that happened, I don't think she really fully thought about what Ruth was going to think, because she was basically acting in, I think, the heat of the moment, because that was her legacy to tell. I mean, that was her family legacy. And the fact of the matter is, Monica didn't seek her out right away when she came back into town. So because she had no reason to, right? Because she didn't believe that that was really her mother. She fully. I don't think she, because I don't think she realized that she was adopted. I think she really believed that her adopted parents were her parents, if I'm not mistaken, unless I missed something.
She thought that
The Shooftons.
she thought that what is it, the housemaids for the Baroness.
Mhm.
She thought that those were her parents.
Yeah, like her real parents. She didn't believe they were her foster parents.
Well, she didn't know until
Oh.
until the Baroness told her
Exactly. So
what the actual story was.
right. So her first thought being back in the town was she wouldn't seek out the Baroness unless she knew that her foster or her adoptive parents worked for her, so she would seek her out to find out more information about her family and everything. I don't know. That could have been it, but she didn't. I don't think she seeked her out when she first got back into the town, because she was staying somewhere else when she was in town. Because I remember
she was staying at the inn. No, she wasn't. She was staying somewhere else.
she was staying somewhere, because I remember when she felt like an evil presence and she was trying to run and hide, that she was knocking on a door and somebody wouldn't let her in or something like that because they knew she was marked or something. So yeah, she had kind of been abandoned by the people that she was staying with.
Mhm.
It's really fascinating. It's really fascinating stuff, dude. You can really kind of interpret it different ways, and when it comes to like the family lineage and what the Baroness and what Melissa ultimately wanted, or what just the Baroness ultimately wanted and was using her daughter to gain, or if she really was just at that point couldn't control her vengeance and her rage, and she was just completely handicapped to it. But I could tell at the end in the third act that she did have rage of her own, because she at the end of the day was upset because she lost her child to just the town's complete foolishness and lack of awareness, essentially. So she had a lot of pent up anger and rage against the town as well. So she really wasn't doing anything to stop the vengeance and everything from.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what she was doing. She was allowing Melissa to seek revenge at this point through her.
Through her, yeah. As a
And
means
then,
to.
yeah, and then like Ruth said, I always said that I was going to put a stop to this if Carl ever got hurt. Well, Carl got killed, so that was the end. She was like, I'm putting a stop to this, and she does.
Yeah, and essentially, I firmly believe she's the only one that could have put a stop to it. No one else could understand how to go about ending the curse and everything but Ruth. And I think she was the town's only hope, and essentially sacrificing herself to end this curse and to do away with the legacy of the town and or the dark past of the town, to kind of drum up the curse and just completely squash it by sacrificing herself against the Baronet. But I wrote that down on the notes. I was like, oh, we have a medium versus like a medium versus a witch, like a battle, which is really, really fascinating. I mean, it's not like relished upon or anything like that. Like, there's no big like scene where they're fighting or anything like that. But I just thought that was pretty cool how it essentially came down to a medium for a psychic versus a witch.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, I definitely dug the ending.
Oh, dude, I dig everything about this movie. I love me some Bava, as probably our listeners can tell how much I gush over just his filmmaking. I mean, there's no real surprise where my allegiance lies when it comes to Bava. I'm a huge fan of his and his storytelling and his visual flair and just everything about how he takes like even like gothic horror or like gialli or anything and just makes it his own in a sense. Puts his own stamp on it. It's just remarkable to me.
Yeah.
So
I'm that way. And I haven't gotten too much into his filmography, and so I'm starting to at this point. And I dig it.
yeah,
I
it's
dig it.
exciting when you're on the
Well,
you're
especially because like names, big names from Italy like Fulci and Argento, and I can probably even think that I would like to think that even Ramiro has kind of some inspiration from the maestro himself, and watching these films and loving all these Italian horror films, and then knowing that they're inspired by this guy, it's just I wish I would have gotten into his films a lot sooner.
right. Even guys in a more contemporary sense like De Palma and Del Toro are I feel they're hugely influenced by Bava. I know Tim Burton is. Tim Burton stated many a times that Black Sunday was very influential to his filmmaking and his style. So, I mean, I know in contemporary circles in Hollywood and with more contemporary directors, he is influential, which is really cool. I just wish they would push for his films to be better known and kind of like put his name out there more for the more mainstream audiences to really get into his stuff, because I'm telling you, people are doing themselves a disservice by not checking out Bava's filmography.
Mm.
They really are. They're missing out on a classic era of horror in a time where so many Hammer was really big at this time. Hammer was overshadowing a lot of stuff at this time, and then you would get into the Amicus stuff and stuff like that was big in the 60s and early 70s. I mean, this kind of buried more European directors, like and kind of like not pushed them aside, but like kind of like, oh, you're so focused on what Britain's doing with Hammer that you kind of lose track of what other amazing European directors are doing at the time. Even like in the French wave, there were so many good directors and so much good stuff coming out in the early 70s. And I mean, a lot of people don't really know Jean Rollin stuff or it's really a shame, because I mean, guys like this have a visual flair that really, really, as an audience member, you sit back and you're just like, wow, your mouth's like, your jaw drops and you're just like, wow, the visual flares of these particular films are just, man, they're a lot to take in. It's almost like looking at art and just being fascinated by how it's made and how it's created. And that's how I can I can kind of relate to it in a sense with filmmaking. It's such an art form that this style right here is not done anymore today. Of course, because it's more contemporary. They don't shoot on film really anymore. I mean, everything's shot digitally. It seems like stuff like this is just old classic like filmmaking, and I think we should all have more of appreciation for it because we've come to a point where it's just like everything's boom, 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 boom in your face. No one takes their time to absorb a story and absorb characters and absorb the background, the cinematography, the atmosphere. Like that's just stuff not prevalent anymore, and it's sad. It's what the foundation of horror was built on. I mean, a lot of the early horror films were very atmospheric, gothic tales. So, I mean, we kind of lose track of it. Right now, we're in kind of a renaissance of horror where it's more. I know people hate the term elevated horror, but that's what's prevalent now. And the more gothic stuff is not really seen too much anymore. So,
well, I always had high hope that Lombardo would come out with some newer films.
Yeah. Well, it's cool that guys like Argento are still making films. Like he just recently put out a new film that is getting a lot of buzz now, which is really cool because I know prior to that we got a taste of a lot of like really really sad movies that Argento had done, like Dracula and stuff like that really did not do well, that really weren't good films. Critically they weren't good at all. So for him to kind of like have a second resurgence, well, not a second resurgence, but like a resurgence now is pretty cool. Maybe that can like drum up more Italian horror to come out because we were solely lacking in Italian horror, and it's so sad. I can't wait. Hopefully one day it'll become as big as it was in the early 70s and the late 80s. I mean, we can only hope.
I mean, I'm sure that they're inspiring somebody, Somebody will pop up, because I mean, you got so many great names that came from Italy, so hopefully.
You got Otto, you got Martino, you got Lenzi, you got so many fucking awesome genre filmmakers from Italy that hopefully will cover their stuff soon.
Yeah. Well, and even down to like you could tell like like Italian horror has really inspired so much here in America.
Oh yeah.
Just alone, like even Romero's early years of the Dead films and stuff was taken away from Fulci.
Well, the cool thing is, I mean, even John Carpenter with Prince of Darkness, with John Carpenter doing Prince of Darkness, that was his take on like an Italian Fulci film. Like, and I never realized that until it was kind of presented to me, and I was like, wow, that really is cool because it seems like Prince of Darkness is an Italian horror film with an American director. Like you can really see that. Flair and how it's shot and how it's done. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Just never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So even John Carpenter was, influenced by, those guys. So I mean,
well, and then you take like, and this is gonna be out there. This is gonna be out there, but and maybe this is just me thinking as a fan, but like even this film that we're covering, I feel that it almost inspires the storyline of Friday the 13th a little bit. I mean, it's similar storyline. Child gets killed, and no one really pays attention, notices because they're out partying and having a good time. That's the basic storyline of Friday the 13th.
In a sense, it would definitely influence the Changeling. And
I see that. I can definitely see that. Yeah. I don't know. So much can be taken away.
Absolutely, dude. Like I said, it's really fascinating to really dig into the history of it and how much Italian horror has really influenced so many North American, you know, genre directors and stuff like that without even the mainstream audience knowing about it. It's really cool. I like seeing YouTubers when I'm watching, different things on YouTube, like a more mainstream horror fan that was raised on, Friday the 13th and stuff like that, kind of like challenge themselves by, oh, I wonder what this Italian horror is all about, and then going through and watching Italian horror and how they're like, wow, like I can see how this has influenced all the stuff that I loved growing up, and I was like, man, that's cool. More people would take the time to do that. A lot more people would open their eyes to like how great Italian horror is. And I just think, and like I said, we talked about it before. I just think a lot of people can't get past the dubbing, and it doesn't work for them. Like there's a disconnect there that just I think that's one of the main factors in it and why it hasn't been more influential with mainstream audiences here. And I'm not saying that they're not, because movies like Suspiria are huge here. People love Suspiria.
Mm-hmm.
People talk about Suspiria all the time. I mean,
so much that it got an American remake.
Right? See, I mean, of course, but I'm talking about more, of Bava's filmography, the earlier stuff. It needs to be, because even his son Lamberto was doing films in the 80s. I mean, and he was doing great films like Demons and fucking Macabre and stuff like that were really, really crazy. And Blade in the Dark, good stuff, man.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Yeah, so like, and I think Lamberto helped his dad with second unit in this movie. He was I think he was credited. I don't know if he was uncredited or credited, but he helped his dad with second unit directing in this.
Yeah, I did notice that when the credits were rolling. I noticed his name popped up, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
He was credited.
He is credited that he did help.
Okay.
Like maybe like co-production or something like that.
Right, and he had done it before. Like I know Bava's last film, Shock. Lamberto took a lot of the directing duties and responsibilities because his father was not doing too well at that time, and he was very, very ill. So he kind of like was pretty much the uncredited real director of Shock, because he did. I don't know if he did the majority of it, but I know he shot a lot of stuff for his dad because his dad was just physically at that time not able to finish that project. So he was there with his dad, and that's really cool when you have a father son, on a project together, being filmmakers. Yeah. That's cool. You just don't see that very often. So
no, you don't.
That's cool. But yeah, like I said, I did notice that Melissa, she commands her victims. I wrote it down with just the slightest movement. Like she'll shift her head slightly, and then like she'll shift her eyes and command them to do stuff. I thought that was really like really, really telling in her complete and utter control of her victims.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost once you're marked for death, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, because the shot where the innkeeper's daughter, that whole scene where she had stabbed herself, walked right into that.
She walked into something, and stabbed her.
Yeah, it stabbed her right in the neck or whatever.
Yeah,
that shot, because you could tell she was not wanting to do it, but she was on control of her own bodily functions. Like,
it's scary, man.
Yeah, it was eerie as fuck.
Really
cool shot.
Yeah.
I dug the hell out of it, because the whole time she's like staring at her very ominously, and you could tell she was like, like you said, controlling her with the movement of her eyes.
Yeah.
And you could tell she didn't want to do it, and she was like freaking out. And
that's another thing with Bava, is like a lot of like his early stuff. There's pretty graphic stuff in them. I mean, with stuff like Black Sunday, we've discussed that, how some of the practical effects and the gore were kind of like ahead of their time for even 1960. And this, I mean, fuck, the first damn scene is a girl throwing herself through like a fence that has like skewers in it, and it's like, damn, you just don't see that very often in the 60s with gore and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
of like you back.
A lot. He was definitely pushing the buck on this one.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I gotta commend him for what he did. Like that one shot, that was way before its time, where he was just like, where it was just the repeating scene over and
Oh,
over again.
so good.
I mean, that's like,
Fuck, it's so good.
yeah, way before its time.
Mhm.
And yeah, like I could see that like in films in this day and age.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where it's easy to loop it via a computer,
Mhm.
or something like that. But man, to sit there and film over and over again and probably have doubles running in front of the other actor that looks like him.
It's quality old school filmmaking is what it is, and it's so
I
cool.
mean, and then it just comes down to, detail. His
Mhm.
eye for detail is amazing, and his editorial staff, I mean, fuck, that must have been hard to go through and edit and everything.
It's
I
perfect,
can only imagine.
buddy. Perfect description. His eye for detail. Then you said it. That's
Yeah.
I'm trying to say. You said it. His eye for detail is just incredible.
Yep. I love it. So you ready to rate this thing?
Absolutely, dude. I think I got everything I needed to get off my notes. Um, double check real quick. Sure. Yeah, the twist was really good. Um, commented many, many times on the lighting and the colors. I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic. We oh, there's a line I wrote down a line that Ruth says that I thought was really, really cool. Um, that kind of stuck with me is, usually I'll think of like a quote from the movie, a line that sticks with you that's really, really influential. And I think Ruth actually says one when she's trying to help the innkeeper's daughter. She's trying to do the spell, and she's doing the incantation. And she says, "Death, where you can find no door, you will come no more." And I thought that was a really good line. I had to write that down. Fuck, that's cool.
That's deep.
Yeah, it is deep. And I did write that Norman Bates would love Ruth's place, like her house, because there was a lot of taxidermy in her house. So, yeah, I had to write that down too. I was like, fuck, I thought of Norman Bates when I saw that. Even though I think a lot of it wasn't birds. It was like small beasts and stuff like that. And I know Norman Bates didn't. He says I don't like the look of beasts when they're stuffed. He likes the birds when they're stuffed. So, which is great, a great play because of course Alfred Hitchcock directed The Birds. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really cool.
Oh man, that's a great
Such
movie
a nerd, dude, when it comes to this shit. But yeah, that was always a good little play on that. So, but even though he directed that before The Birds, but I thought that was
Probably maybe that was an inspiration there.
possibly
Mm-hmm.
stuff really cool.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm ready to get into ratings when you are, bud. Whenever.
Right, man. You want to go first? You want me to?
You want to go first? I mean, since this is your
Okay.
first watch, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said earlier, this was almost like going into it as a first time watch for me. Um. I dug it. Even up to the score was great. Everything about it was great. The atmosphere, everything was captured quite well. Um. I love the storyline, even down to like, you know, there's a scene that I really love where he's trying to get the attention of the whole village, and he's like ringing a bell, and no one's coming to help him or
with that,
him or Monica. I
yeah,
love that. That's probably one of my favorite shots. That whole scene where they're running through trying to get help, and no one's there to help them. Um, Everything about this film, I dug. Even though I nitpick a little bit and say I would love to see this in black and white. Um, for me, even when it's in color, it's just as effective. I just personal preference. I would love to see it in black and white if I could, but that's me. Um, yeah, 4.5.
Oh.
4.5.
Nice, dude. Very cool.
Yeah.
Great. For me, I've stated a couple times even on here, this is to me another one of like Bava's truly underrated films. I mean, I put this up here with I put this up there with Black Sunday, Black Sabbath, um, Blood and Black Lace. I mean, I think it's just as great as those films, honestly. I mean, I think the man is a masterclass in filmmaking. I mean, you can take his films to school and learn so much about effective lighting and shot composition and how they. I mean, you could say what you want about the narrative, how it's very simple, but a lot of narratives at the time were simple. I mean, this was his take on the gothic horror tale, and I mean, really, is there a lot of complicated narratives when it comes to gothic horror? I mean, not really. Yeah, I mean, this is his take on that, and I think he did it flawlessly. This is like something if this was made in the 30s, it would be as influential as stuff like Frankenstein and Dracula and all the Universal monster stuff, all the Universal stuff in general. I mean, if it was just made in that time period, because those movies had some of the best atmosphere you'll ever see, and so does this, bar none. Like I said, I think the Melissa Graff's character is so iconic, and I believe would be an icon if more mainstream horror fans or just more mainstream people in general had seen this movie, and they probably wouldn't be able to get the image of her stuck out of their head after watching it, because that's how it was. I mean, it's just a striking visual. You just don't really forget it. I love the title too. I didn't even talk about the title, but Kill Baby Kill is a great title. I know the Italian title's probably even cooler, like they usually are. Just saying it in Italian is just so much fun. I don't want to say it because I don't want to butcher it. So, yeah, this for me is, like I said, the repeating scene is like one of the coolest scenes ever. It's so cool. The scene with the spiral staircase and that whole scene is fucking brilliant as well. The third act to me just solidifies this movie as it sets up so well the atmosphere of the town and everything in the first act, and then it culminates into a crescendo in the last third. It's wonderful. To me, again, this is a 5 out of 5. I give it 5 stars. It's just Bava just continues to hit not just home runs but grand slams to me. Like he just absolutely kills it. It shocks me that he really thought that his films weren't that good when he thought about his own filmography, because I just it blows my mind. That's the man being extremely, extremely humble because his filmmaking was masterful. And he is the godfather of Italian horror. He's the maestro, and he should be credited as such because, like I said, the Italian horror scene wouldn't have become what it was if it wasn't for him. At the end of the day, I mean, you would have no Argento if it wasn't for guys like Bava and Hitchcock, and you wouldn't have those guys. Like, just wouldn't have been. They wouldn't have been a thing. So like I said, you got to give credit where credit's due with the man. So like I said, 5 out of 5 for me, no question. I love this just as much as Black Sunday.
Right on.
I have nothing to complain about, honestly. Just don't. Characters were amazing. Like I said, you can complain. People can complain about the narrative. It is what it is. It's very simple. It's not too complicated. It's a supernatural, a gothic story. But like I said, I love that kind of shit, so I'm not going to complain about it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm right there with you on that. And to your point, yeah, you're right. And as far as Bava and everything, because when it comes down to it, even we were talking about this. I think a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week, we were talking about this. But like, there was so much of a strain on horror films in Italy around this time period, because they wouldn't allow certain things. And it's almost like once the freedom was released upon, uh, filmmakers in Italy. It's almost like Bava was pushing the buck,
Hmm.
and I could see where a lot of people maybe even had problems with, some of the things that he did, including like the first scene in this film and how graphic it was, and especially for 1966 in Italy, that was probably pushing it.
Hmm.
He was probably really pushing it.
Yeah.
Yep. So I don't know. I dig it. I dig his filmmaking, and I can't wait to watch more of his stuff.
Yeah.
That's gonna come up.
That's gonna be fun, man. That's gonna be fun. I'm really looking forward to. I mean, I've at this point, there's not too many Bava films I haven't seen, so um, like I said, I'm excited for you to delve into them being first time watches. So I'm excited for you experiencing like
Mm.
filmography as a whole. It's gonna be quite a ride. I will say that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the next one I'm gonna watch is Black Sabbath.
Yeah, you gotta watch Black Sabbath.
That's Boris Karloff, ain't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Boris Karloff, so.
Oh, you're gonna love that one then. Love that one. He's great in Black Sabbath.
Awesome. I look forward to watching that one.
Great in everything. This is Boris Karloff, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a legend. So
Yep. Well, are you ready to land it?
yep, think
Cool.
so.
Well, folks, we appreciate you joining in on our conversation of 1966 Kill Baby Kill, and we hope we didn't spoil anything for you. But like I said, well, we didn't really cover it, but make sure that you head over to our Facebook group and join in on the conversation. Fun. I know I'm posting funny stuff in there and posting our latest episodes in there, and hope that you come and join us and share your thoughts on horror films and get a conversation going, whatever. Um, but yeah, if you're not a part of that, please join us and make sure that you like, share, and subscribe this episode along with many of our others, and make sure that you're telling your friends and family about us too. Essentially, like we've always said, you guys are what's keeping us going. This is more of a hobby for us than anything, so we love doing this for you. And if you guys have any suggestions you guys want to get out, or you guys want us to watch something and give our honest opinions and reviews on, we would be more than happy to do that for you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just head over there or leave a comment down below, and I'd like to generate a discussion as well. What's your favorite Bava film? Do you have one? Is this the first time you've heard about Bava?
Yeah,
Anything. We're dying to know what your thoughts are on Bava and your takes on him as well.
Mm-hmm.
You guys praise him as much as us. So we just want to hear your conversations and your thoughts on the subject and the man himself. But yeah, with that, Tony, you got anything?
No, and like I said, if anybody if anybody doesn't know too much about Baba or anything, if they're trying to have recommendations, please if you want recommendations or anything like that, me and Corey or other knowledgeable members in the group, I mean that have experienced what it is to take in a Mario Bava film, we would love to absolutely shoot you some recommendations on which ones to go on first and which ones to try first and see if it's your thing and maybe open up a can of worms and actually make a new fan out of a couple of, and that's at the end of the day, like I love doing the podcast because I love the discussions that we have, the deep dives that we'll get into, but I also love like recommending films to people that a lot of people haven't seen, and hopefully getting more traction to these films and hopefully getting more people to watch them and stuff like that. That's always kind of an exciting part of it for me too as well. So like I said, if anybody's got any recommendations, or if anyone wants some recommendations, feel free to post them in the group, on anything Italian horror. We're later on down the line, we're going to cover a lot more Italian directors. So if you got any questions or anything like that on where to start, so you can kind of join in on the discussions with us and kind of be familiar with it, we will definitely help in any regard we can when it comes to a good, solid recommendation. So don't be afraid. Join in on discussions. Like Corey said, we always have fun in the group. We always have amazing discussions. Pickups are always fun. If you guys are picking up anything or you spotted some deals on stuff and you want to share them with the group, by all means, if it's horror, share it away. That's what we're all about. So, and I'll always say, and I'll always thank you guys so much for the continued support. You guys are amazing, truly, truly helping us get this ball rolling with the podcast and making it so much fun and exciting. So thank you guys again, as always.
Well put, man. Well put.
Thank you. Thanks, buddy.
Well, with that, guys, catch you later.
Later, guys.